Right, so it's just turned 5 o'clock, so we will make a start. So good evening and welcome to the Scrutiny Management Board. Before we start these proceedings, may I bring to your attention some housekeeping matters. There are no expected fire alarm testing today. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please follow the signs to the nearest fire exit and meet at the fire assembly point in the civic square. Can I also ask that you use your microphone when addressing the meeting and that is switched off when you're not using it? And please, could you turn your mobile devices to silent? This meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. By entering the Warspite room and during the course of the meeting, councillors are consenting to be filmed and to the use of the recording for webcasting. First of all, I'm going to start with item number 1. So could I ask our Democratic Support Advisor whether or not there's been any apologies and substitutes for today's meeting?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Steele. Councillor Stevens is substituting today. Apologies from Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Simpson is substituting today. And apologies from Vice Chair Councillor Finn. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any other apologies? No. All right, appointment on item number 2, appointment of chair and vice chair for 25-26. This is to note the appointment of myself, Councillor Coker, as chair and Councillor Finn as vice chair for this municipal year. Do we need to take a vote on that? Or is it just noting it? Just to note it. Okay. For this meeting only, because I'm new to this, I am going to indulge myself and ask members to appoint a vice chair just for today to help me see who wants to speak and who doesn't. I would like to propose that Councillor Murphy acts for this meeting. If members are in agreement to that, could I ask for a show of hands? Just thank you very much. Item number 3. Do any members have any declarations of interest for today's meeting? No. Thank you. Item number 4. Are members happy to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of April 2025 and for me to sign them, although I wasn't here? So I would like members of the panel that were here to propose and second it. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I was at the last minute, so I proposed the minutes.
Thank you. Was there anybody here who could second them, that it was at the last meeting? Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. Chair's urgent business. I haven't got any, but I'm going to take the liberty of, in this section, I've been approached by one member of the committee about the timings of this meeting. It was one of the things that councils get criticised for is not offering a variety of times for meetings. So this meeting was moved till 5 o'clock, I believe, along with the children's and young people scrutiny panel to be able to offer a variety of times. And I promised the person that raised it that I would bring it up today. But it's just for 5 minutes. I'd like any kind of comments that members have on this.
Thank you, Councillor Coker. It was me, Councillor. I phoned you about it, yeah. I was shocked that it was 5 o'clock, but thank you for having this quick, hopefully a very quick discussion. I'm just hoping we can move it to 2 o'clock. I mean, you look at the panel and you look at the situations for each person, and obviously I've got children, I've got them in childcare tonight, and we're supposed to support families, but it depends on the panel. I mean, hopefully the panel will be agreeable that 2 o'clock is the sweet spot and we can continue with that.
Just very quickly, I made arrangements with my employer to take the afternoon off at 2 p.m. So I'm happy to revert back to 2. Because those approvals are still in place. So
Thanks. If you can be the first chair that finds a consensus on any committee, we will all be super impressed. I totally get the points that colleagues have made. I would add that I'm substituting for someone who, and now whether or not Daniel, I genuinely don't know if it's a work issue and the timing is difficult or it's something else. I don't know either way. I think the best way is always just to do a quick survey, and so obviously not at the moment because some people are missing, but do a very quick survey of the regular members of the committee, and then it's your poison chalice to decide what to do. But it doesn't need to be a difficult thing. It's just a quick, amongst the however many regular members there are you happy with the current situation? Would you like to revert as has been suggested? And then I think we would all trust your judgment to analyse those results, Chair.
Councillor Holloway?
Thank you, Chair. Support the comments by Councillor Stevens. I support the meeting being at 5 o'clock. I'm one of those people who work. I do arrange childcare for the evenings, but I understand this. I think, it's not all committees that are like this. It's a small number, and I would hope we have a balance across the committees that allows members to, be able to access committees around what their lifestyles have. We should be encouraging more people who have daytime commitments to attend committees. Thank you.
Okay, what I will commit to do is I will get that organised with unfortunately my vice chair isn't here today. So we will get a straw poll out to members of the committee and the majority will win. Simple as that. Okay? That was all under that one. We now move to item number 6, which is the leaders' forward plan of key decisions. It's included in what we've got. Members are asked to discuss and note the plan. Is there any questions on the forward, or it's not actually a forward plan, it's a forward plan of key decisions? Councillor Poyser?
thank you, Chair. I suppose my first observation, having gone on to the council's website, is that we only get, am I right in saying we get a month's notice on key decisions, or up to a month? Have we got more sight of decisions beyond that? I just wanted to clarify that first.
Yeah, Jamie's here today to answer the forward plan questions, so I'll revert to Jamie.
Thank you, Chair. So there's monthly revisions published, but the plan spans longer than a month, so within a 3-month period. However, depending on what decisions meet the key decision criteria, there may not be changes between monthly plans. So it's not that all have a month's notice, some have far longer than that, as you can see on there. It's just that not all things will meet the criteria to have to be put onto the forward plan.
Substitute, if I may, and I'm sure other councillors would like to probably look at this, scrutinise this a bit more. So you're saying that these are only decisions that meet the criteria to go online. So, but we've got, is that right? Or have we got, is there kind of sight of decisions further down the line that we can also see as a scrutiny management? That's the bit I can't, surely there's some key decision points into the future as well that meet the criteria that we.
Thank you, Councillor Poyser. So the key decision point is in legislation as the criteria. So that's set in legislation about what meets that. There is obviously many other ways that the panels can be involved in other decisions that are important but don't classify as key by the legislation. So your chairs in your pre-decision your pre-agenda sets will discuss you know, a range of items. I mean, like the panels, as evidenced by the annual report last year, did quite a lot of key decisions and scrutiny. You know, some examples are, you know, the economic strategy, the port strategy, you know, the send plan. So whilst these are decisions that meet the criteria for publication, these are not all of the decisions that you're able to scrutinise.
But to clarify, so we have a list on the website, which is the legally required forward plan. You are free as a council, or we are free as a council to publish a more comprehensive list should we wish. We don't have to just only publish that forward plan with the legally required key decisions. We can have forward plan. I mean, other councils do have extensive forward plans published.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. So the key decision threshold is decided by council. So there are some that are in legislation, but there are thresholds that are within council's discretion. It's been chosen by council that these are the criteria. Obviously, there are lists of other decisions that will be discussed with chairs and vice chairs about policies and strategies, which, you know, can feature onto the agendas if necessary, and also some of the stuff that you've covered across the municipal year is very strategic. So whilst these are decisions at the implementation stage, you have considered the project in its entirety through other ranges.
Can I just interject, because obviously being a long time out of scrutiny and now coming back into it, I, with the board's agreement, would like to write to the leader and all cabinet members asking them what is on their immediate term for the next 12 months that we could help as scrutiny to have an input before decisions are made. And then we can then delegate that to each of the scrutiny panels. But obviously, I wanted everybody's opinion on that. It's just that I think we need to get, as a scrutiny management board, into scrutinising some decisions or before they're actually made and have an input into it. So that would be one way forward, but I'm interested to see what members think.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome that. I think that would be useful to get some insight on decisions made by the leader and the cabinet, but I think it's also probably incumbent upon us as a scrutiny management board to be the driving engine of this, of scrutiny for pre-decisions. So I would like us to have sight on key decisions that the council will be making and for us to be able to decide what we're scrutinising as in pre-decision.
Yeah, I also fully support that. I think it's really important if we're going to be a good scrutiny management board that we are discussing things and key decisions prior to them being made. You know, 3 scrutiny panels now for more than a year, and at no point on any of them have we ever done any pre-decision scrutiny. So I think it's really important, and I support this.
So have I got the board's approval to write to the leader and cabinet members to our Councillor Holloway?
Yeah, I support, Chair. I think this point of, in the key decision definition of what it means to be significant in terms of effects on communities, if we can ask for clarity in how that's defined. I know you referred to that, but I think how the political leadership is seeing that would be helpful. Thank you.
I agree with you, and that's something we'll take out of this meeting. So can I just have a quick show of hands that everybody is happy for me to write to the leader and cabinet members? Excellent, thank you very much. And the only other thing is then to note what we've got in front of us. So we will move on. The next thing is number 7, update from committee chairs and work programmes. Now, I might be starting off my tenure controversially, but when I was reading through your last meeting, it says in there that you all agreed that if you or a vice chair of your committee was not here today, that reports would be given for this meeting. I just want to double check that I've read that correctly from the people that were here. Because today I've just asked, because obviously we've got the chair and vice chair of one of the scrutiny panels that are both not here today through different circumstances, but we've had no report. So I just want to re-emphasise that that was what was agreed at a previous meeting, and going forward, I'm going to ask the Democratic Support Officer to make sure that we follow that through, because obviously we've got one panel today that we've got nothing on, which is very, very disappointing. So I'm going to go to committee chairs. So I'm obviously going to start with Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. I can't reach. Thank you, Chair. We had our first scrutiny meeting last week, which was really, really good actually. And on that first meeting, if you remember, Councillor Beer put a motion of notice in for end of life. So we made that. What I really wanted to do was to bring that in on our very first meeting. Just to give you a little bit of an update, end of life had already come to our scrutiny twice before. The recommendations that we'd given, the organisations went away and they actually took our recommendations into account. What was really, really good when they came back last week was the amount of progress that they've actually made on end of life. It is honestly, if you get a chance to read what they've done, it's absolutely amazing, and we had to congratulate them as a scrutiny panel because they have done incredibly well. So that was on there. Our work programme, Chair, we have got lots of items on the programme, but we haven't decided what we're actually going to bring in for the next meeting. Members were asked if there was anything in particular that they wanted to see on the agenda, and as always, members just leave it to the chair and the vice chair. So, but you can see at the back there what we're actually looking at to bring in. But if there's anything from this scrutiny that want us to bring in on that scrutiny, I'm more than welcome to take that away.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. What I would ask, and I was going to ask all chairs, is that on your work programmes, are we looking at the areas of potential overspend in the council and what is being done to reduce the overspend in each of the areas that we scrutinise? Because we have a lot of talk come budget time about how difficult the budget is, and so I would just say to chairs, if you can be mindful of that going forward.
Every scrutiny, Chair, we always have finance come in and risk. So yeah, we do look at it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Murphy? No. Councillor Ricketts.
Good evening. Yeah, we met a couple of weeks ago, had a good meeting. We've added an additional meeting in to reflect the 5 pillars of the economic growth and how they're operating as a department. We want to match that so we can scrutinise it to its full potential. There's 5 pillars, there was 4 meetings, there's now 5 meetings. We looked into housing and general situations like that. There was quite a bit of press coverage on the meeting. The next meeting will reflect another pillar. We'll be looking at skills and we'll be looking at how that underpins everything. And we have pinned in some site visits as well to give that extra enrichment that I believe the leadership team are joining us on. So yeah, we look forward to the year ahead.
Thank you. Any councillors? Any questions for Councillor Ricketts? No.
Yeah, me.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Murphy.
Steve, can I ask, you know, when you're looking at housing, do you ever think, have on your work programme, military housing?
It's a very good point, and that will be in the plan for homes. There was some vigorous scrutiny between me and myself and Councillor Penberthy about the plan for homes. I think there's a lot of holes in it. That is an area again we need to look into, so we'll raise that.
Councillor Holloway?
Thank you, Chair. I think obviously we've got the Housing and Communities panel, so I don't know if that, because we looked at the housing issue from a sort of infrastructure and how it feeds into the broader economy perspective. So maybe it's an issue to make sure that we're not losing this really important house point between different committees. Just further to that, I just want to say we had really positive member reaction. Councillor Ricketts sort of initiated with officers having these visits for the committee, including to Devonport Dockyard next month, and that's been really well received by a number of councillors. So thank you for all who's been involved in that.
Thank you. I don't believe we have Councillor Poyser.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ricketts, so this is for, just to be completely clear, this is for the Natural Infrastructure and Growth Committee. So just looking at the key decisions that are potentially coming up, previous item on the agenda, we have one which is strategic investment property acquisitions to be determined by the leader. Decision dates, glasses, we'll read this right, 6th of June to the 30th of September this year. Could that fall within your scrutiny programme for the next meeting in September? Or is that something you could do pre-decision on? I'm just checking whether that's some, well, just trying to check our thinking here in terms of pre-decision scrutiny, that's all.
Yeah. Thank through you, Chair. If Democratic support can just note that and then remind me to bring that up in my pre-meet and see if it's going to work or not. But yeah, fair point.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to Elliot, who is just going to, from his being in attendance at the other scrutiny, his viewpoint on the other scrutiny.
Thank you, Chair. So apologies, I wasn't at the last housing scrutiny, but I've been given a handover from a colleague. So there was a positive meeting in July where they looked at the grit bin policy and important updates on the Central Park Ponds project. The Chair is keen to leave space on the agenda for hot topics that arise at the moment, but they've gone out to Cabinet members to see what pre-decision scrutiny would be relevant. On the work programme, there is pre-decision scrutiny scheduled around October, subject to change, for Plymouth Active Leisure contract. There is building bridges to opportunity, and there's also an update on the homelessness service, which came out of budget scrutiny. So those are three currently scheduled, but we will keep you updated. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any questions from any members that haven't spoken yet?
I was debating how contentious to be, but I feel like I'm just going to go for it. I mean, it was a very well-described description of that housing communities panel meeting, but that would not be the way I would reflect that meeting, only because the two items on that agenda we had were both items we'd reviewed before. We went through them all again. Both reports were to note, and there was no actual scrutiny involved, I wouldn't say, in that meeting. We had two scrutiny meetings in the same day, and having the housing communities in the afternoon and then having the children's one in the evening was really striking, because the children's one did 5 really meaty subjects and lasted 3.5 hours, and the housing communities did 2 with no recommendations and no scrutiny, and it lasted 55 minutes and we all went home. So there's a big discrepancy, I would say, in the way that scrutiny panels are run, and obviously there's discretion of chairs, but I think that generally speaking, the framework for those sub-scrutiny panels should all be the same or similar, and they're not currently.
I would agree with that as well, and I also just want to highlight a point here that we missed an opportunity at that meeting to do a pre-decision on the food waste collection service as well. So just want to make a note for the committee here.
Councillor Freeman? Yeah, then I'll come back to you.
Going to keep it very, very brief, Chair. I would exactly echo what Lewis has just said. The last meeting of Housing and Communities was my first in a while, because I'd been put back onto the scrutiny, which was great, and it was vastly different to when I started on it last year, and I think there was so much more that we could have been able to cover. Thank you.
Jamie?
Just to come in on Councillor Poyser's point that there has been pre-decision scrutiny on the household waste and recycling on the housing and community panel, so it's already been considered, but if you feel that there needs to be further scrutiny on it, then
Councillor Poyser, would you like to come back on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. There was an item which was on waste and recycling and reuse, but this was around specifically the decision to sign off on the waste collection services. There should be an opportunity to see like pre-report for that decision at that housing and scrutiny meeting for us to review before it was signed off. So things could have significantly changed as well in between that first scrutiny item and position and this one as well. So this sign off.
I think we've made some comments here that I will discuss with my vice chair. I sit on the one that Lewis was talking about, and to say it was really difficult for me because I was involved with the grit bin policy, and to spend nearly an hour on it was somewhat disappointing, but I, having been in my previous role, took no part in that conversation other than to say, can we move on? But I think that the value of how we work scrutiny should be consistent throughout the authority. So that's something as the new chair that I will take back. I will talk to my vice chair, and then we will then all get together and find a suitable way forward. What I will do is commit to coming along to all of your scrutinies throughout the course of the year and sit in and observe, because I think that's part of the role that I should be doing. So I will do that. I won't be at everyone, but I will come along, because sometimes it's good to get a fresh pair of eyes on what's going on. So I will commit to do that, and I will take the feedback that I've got today back to my vice chair. Councillor Ricketts.
Chair, I think it's all good. I can't even remember. I mean, sitting on these panels, you know, it's a nice little exercise just to go over how the panels are going. Let's just not beat each other up too much about it. It's not an exact science. Things happen, events happen, emotions can come into play in meetings. Things that you see on a bit of paper can sometimes spark up in different ways you can't imagine. So as long as things are done in the spirit of each panel, then, you know, let's not get too hard on ourselves.
Well, when I said I was going to discuss it with my vice chair, there was going to be no beating up of anybody, but we've got to have open and, as I remember you saying, Councillor Ricketts, when I was cabinet member, we need to have open conversations about things, Councillor Coker. So that is what I intend to bring to this scrutiny panel.
I can't remember saying that, Councillor. Can you quote me
I
back
think
the time
it was
and
about
date,
when we
please?
were having.
Sounds like a sensible thing to say, but
Yeah, it
it's a hell
was,
of a memory
but
you've
I
got
can't
there.
remember when it was, but something stick in your mind, Steve. Okay, so do we need to do anything else on that?
I've just got one more quick note through you, Chair, in relation to health, was that I've been told they've added winter plan, believe it or not, even though it's summer, winter planning comes up again, so that's on the list. And also there was a discussion about transitions to adulthood. Obviously that blends between children's and health, so there was talk of looking at a joint scrutiny on that subject, a joint select committee, so that will be discussed with the chairs.
Thank you, Elliot. Councillor Blight has just arrived, and it would be unfair for me not to give Councillor Blight the same opportunity as I gave other chairs for a report on your scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just getting into my computer because there were two issues that we raised, which, a bit like the last item, span across two scrutiny committees. One was school playing fields, whether that comes under children's, young people and families, or growth in infrastructure, and where we locate that on the work programme. And apologies, I can't remember the second one, I'm just going to look it up.
Tess, was it transition from children to adults? Because I know we've got that on our work programme.
Yes, because that's always an issue, obviously, for our scrutiny, so it's probably that one. I will just check though.
No pressure there. Lewis, would you want to come in
And
between?
just fill the void a little bit, just on a
Thank
similar
you.
topic to the first one Tess made. In terms of
I'm going to stop you, Lewis, because we've got both microphones on, so no one can
sorry,
hear,
in terms of the decision about what topic goes to which scrutiny panel, you know, having the plan for homes go to growth and infrastructure when we've got a housing and communities scrutiny panel seems odd to me. I know it's basically impossible to produce a list of every single part of the council and what scrutiny committee it would belong to, but what is the correct process? Does this committee decide which other committee it goes to? And if it's vague, does it come here? Is that the normal policy?
I'm going to ask my support team because I don't know. Yeah, for that.
Thank you. Can I just clarify what the item was you raised? Was it Plan for Homes? Yeah. So I believe, and I'll look it up in the Constitution, that the strategic side of the sort of housing doesn't go to the Housing and Community Services panel. I will double check that for you. In terms of where there is no, where they overlap and there is no decision, the Constitution says that it should be a joint select committee. So that would be for the panel to organise basically, and then the chairs to decide on membership. So a shared scrutiny meeting.
Councillor Ricketts.
Good question. I've asked it myself, okay, and it's just the terms of reference. Strategic housing goes in the growth board, and then general housing is in the other, as Elliot said.
Thank you for that. Councillor Blight.
Thank you for giving me that time. Yes, Councillor Murphy is right. The other issue was transitions to adulthood, which is obviously the joint scrutiny issue.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to report from your first meeting, just to update members or not?
We met at 5:30, so apologies, that's why I arrived here at 5:30. I won't make that mistake again. We met at 5:30 and finished 7 minutes late at almost 9:20. So it was our first evening meeting, which was a bit of a shock to some people. We had a young person representing participation group who asked questions of officers and of councillors, and I have to say was excellent in that scrutiny, and we all have lessons to learn from that young man. It was a very good first meeting of the year.
Thank you for that. And I think that concludes item number 7.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Is it possible, Councillor Blight, as well, that there was an item on use of AI in the, I think it was children's social care, and that was one that potentially bordered 2 different remits. So that was the last one to add. Other than that, we're good. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everybody. Now we move on to our own work programme, which is on, it says on my sheet, pages 45 to 50, but none of mine are numbered.
No, but there's nothing there.
So that's just something to take back. So it's there's our work programme. Anyone got anything they'd like to say or subjects that they think we should discuss that we could add to our work programme? Councillor Ricketts.
Thank you. So we, in March, it's all minuted, we discussed the staff working from home situation, or hybrid working, whatever you want to call it. It hasn't been penciled in yet, because they're going to consult with different people, unions and such like. Could we have it at the next meeting, please?
We will note that and see where they are. I'm afraid I wasn't involved, so I don't know the answers to that, Councillor Ricketts, but I will find out and we should have it back.
In the papers, it's sort of hanging there waiting to be fitted in, and I'm hoping the sooner the better.
Okay, point noted. Anybody else? Councillor Poyser?
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the minutes from the last meeting back in March, it says there's an item on work programme here, and it said work programme session after May 2025. I wasn't on the panel then, but was there a dedicated session on the work programme in May?
Through you, Chair. It was decided in the end not to hold a physical work programme session and to leave it for the first meeting of the board for all of us to do here.
I just wondered is there any merit in us taking some time as a panel? I know Mark's committing his time to go to other scrutiny panel meetings. As us as a panel ourselves, as committee members, to have our own session where we're looking at programming as well, so we can actually have a debate rather than just at this meeting, which is the first opportunity we've had to get together. So,
Can I just say, Chair, there was a scrutiny training. Was it last week?
No, week before.
Week before. So I don't know if that's what that means, if I'm being totally honest.
I think it's referring to the work programme for this panel itself. Is that?
Through you, Chair. There were two actions last year. One was the scrutiny training for all members, which obviously was hosted, as Councillor Murphy referred to. The other one was for basically the chairs to get together and, on behalf of the Scrutiny Management Board, set out their priorities and work programme sort of appropriately throughout the year. That's what this item really is intended to do, but if members do feel that an offline session would be beneficial to do that, then more than happy to organise that.
I would be happy for that, if I'm fair. So I'm going to ask you, and then if members want to choose to join, they can. Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else got anything to say? Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify the process? So if there is a sort of a political hot potato or a hot topic that potentially falls across one or more, two or more committee areas, the process for raising it, should we be raising in this meeting or should we come to you, Chair, for sort of guidance on where that should go? Could you clarify that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I would much prefer you to come to me, and then I can discuss with the team the best way forward. So yes, come to me. Anybody else?
Steve.
Councillor Ricketts.
Just a quick one. Listen, I'm really happy that we've got this structure back to how I've always known it, with us overseeing the panels. We could bog ourselves down into every little thing, and it's a good structure. We must communicate constantly. Every business isn't always done in this particular forum. Business is done after the meetings. Get everything lined up. Plenty of communication. That's what we need to do. Let's just not beat ourselves up and just communicate all the time.
Thank you for those wise words. Anybody else? No? Okay, we will move on. The next item is item number 9. The panel is asked to note the action log. Elliot, you wanted to talk on this one.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief. There's 3 actions that members will find in your packs which relate to the last meeting of the last municipal year. Should have explained it during the work programming session, but we have the select committee PID, which related to cycling in the city centre. Hoping to bring that to the next board meeting for you all to discuss and comment on and shape before we schedule. So that relates to the first action. The second one was for the chair of the Scrutiny Management Board, who was obviously Councillor Stevens at the time, to engage with the city centre company and other partners to really encourage that attendance at the select committee. I believe Councillor Stevens had quite success with that, and I will ask him for an update, but that action is very much in progress and being undertaken. And then there is one more which relates to lobbying members of Parliament to see what the current progress and whether basically they can help with safety measures for cycling in the city centre. That's being picked up in the PID, so I'll bring it back to you next meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, just to let members know, that was actually, had it emailed to me last night, so I will go through it and then we will get that up and running, because it's a real topic that people are talking about and we need to give it a fair hearing. So we will get that done. So if nobody else has got anything, we will move to item 10, which is our budget monitoring, which is on unnumbered pages 53 to 60. And who is leading you, Ian? So hand over to Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. So the monitoring report in front of you is the month 2 monitoring report. At the end of May, you will see headline at that point in the year, still very early. We are forecasting a closing spend position of 253.4 million, which is in line with budget. We're not recognising any variance at this point in terms of pressures. Just to pull out some key highlights. Unsurprisingly, the narrative is describing around adult social care, children's social care, some of the early indicators of work that's being undertaken, both in terms of risks around volume of packages and cost in the adult social care space, but also just to flag that of course goes alongside work around overall care package costs, and of course the work that the team do, the directorate do around budget containment as they work through the year and manage the situation in front of them. Similarly, in terms of children's, very early in the year, they came into the year with a number of placements in terms of children's social care in line with the budget, so nothing being flagged at that point. At the point of writing, there were a number of children, as it flags here, placements going through panel. However, the team will be working as they progress through the year, again, both managing any of those cost pressures alongside opportunities and in terms of savings and delivery plans that have been set for the year. The education participant skills team did their first full monitoring in month 3, so nothing was flagged, although levels of EHCP, which is an indicator for both incurred costs and as well as the home to school transport, were in line with their budget. The only other area, just to, I suppose, to call out, as I said, it was all in line with budget at this point, would be around the corporate and customer service directorate, where just some early risks being flagged around some additional spend in the FM space around surveys that were early in the year flagged as being required, as well as, I think that's it. I think that's what I wanted to. Right, yeah, that was it. I suppose over to yourselves for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ian, Steve?
Thank you, Chair. We're on budget monitoring, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. What baffles me, and I brought this up last cycle with Councillor Stevens, is that I don't understand why we're supposed to be holding the administration to account. Councillor Lowry, from recollection, doesn't seem to be attending the meetings. I'm completely confused. If Mark can't attend, then the leader needs to be here. But we're supposed to be holding the administration to account, not Ian. We can get some technical points from Ian and he can explain things. I'm completely baffled why this isn't happening. Why is the cabinet members not coming for these items?
I know Councillor Lowry's on holiday this week, which was a pre-arranged holiday, but I'm not aware, and you make a point that I will follow up, because I came to every scrutiny, as you know. So that's something I will take back, because I think cabinet members should be here, and I agree with you. So I will take that back, Councillor Ricketts. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking it as it is, because we've both been cabinet members. It's some of the things that should be at the forefront of our minds to be held to account in the relevant forums. There's one-offs, but it's been a whole cycle. So thank you.
Yeah, I can't comment on last year, but I'm here now. Councillor Allinson.
I do agree with the overall concept that cabinet members should be here to present reports. But in terms of the ones being presented currently, it's a budget monitoring report, and I'm wondering whether it is actually necessary for the cabinet member for finance to be here for that one. You have a budget monitoring report at every scrutiny panel meeting, so there's 32 of them across the year. Is it feasible to ask him to attend 32 scrutiny meetings to update on budget variance? It's not an actual finance paper, is it? It's just an update report.
Yeah, it's a factual paper.
It is an update report, but I intend to have one-to-ones with each of the cabinet members, because I feel that actually they can't attend all 32. You're absolutely right. But they should be coming to this board, in my opinion. This is overseeing scrutiny, and I think this should be a priority. So I will feed that back. But I take on board what you're saying. Councillor Poyser?
Thank you, Chair. Clearly another difficult year for directorates, having to make some tough decisions. So obviously we thank those leaders for being diligent and trying to, again, lead this council to balancing the books at the end of the year. At yesterday's Ordinate Governance meeting, there was some questions around pensions, and I just wondered whether in this report here, given the fact it's a forecast for budget monitoring, whether there's any implications for pensions or risks to pensions that might affect the way we govern and run our services.
I think the reference you may be making was there was raised a query again around the historic transaction. I don't know if there was the only mention of pensions, I think, from the meeting from memory, and I assured the audit and governance around the work that's ongoing with MACLG in that space. So there is nothing in terms of the forward look across the year that would be impacted by any of those matters.
Okay, so no other hands that I can see, so that the Scrutiny Management Board notes the forecast revenue monitoring position in month 2 and its variance with the risks highlighted, and point 2, senior officers will continue to work with Cabinet to reduce the budgetary risk, but also can I add on to that the Cabinet member, myself, will speak to the Cabinet member for Finance as agreed earlier in the meeting. So that is that for voting on, or is that just to note? It doesn't say.
First one is to note. Yes,
Oh, to note. Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to Ian again for the risk monitoring report of Q4 last year.
Thank you, Chair. You rightly point out, yes, this is the monitoring report in terms of Q4 risks, so as at end of March. The report details the key highlights in terms of where the risk, any risk movements and some of the consolidation, etc. I'll just step through those briefly and then open up to questions. First of all, just to note, there has been no change in the risk scoring in terms of the movements within the quarter. The key changes that happened to the risk register in that quarter and the update was around consolidation. So there was consolidation of various 3 social care risks previously into a consolidated social care sustainability risk, and also the combination of what was a cyber attack vulnerability and keeping data secure risks into a single digital and data resilience. Both of those I would flag are seen as key risks and sit as those needing more immediate attention. The third of those consolidations was a combination of carbon reduction targets and I can't quite remember the other, bear with me a moment, and another environmental risk to bring about the new climate adaptation and environmental resilience as part of the Growth Directorate in terms of a third consolidated risk. On top of those consolidations, there were 3 new risks added. One, unsurprisingly, relating to LGR and devolution in terms of the challenges that may represent the authority. A second around the scale of legislative change being faced and managing that. And the third one, which I will dwell on slightly, is in terms of risk culture worth dwelling on, as I think obviously this is a report on risk, and a risk has been flagged. I just wanted to update on some of the work that we've been doing since I've started and taking on some of the work around risk. I think if I were to reflect on, and we discussed yesterday audit and governance around some of the internal audit reports, and one of those reports was around the risk culture. Reflecting on that, you know, this risk is flagged because of the need to progress a language within the authority around risk management. There is a clear framework as set out, a well-established framework, and language around risk appetite, etc. What we want to progress forward in the work I'm doing currently with the Devon Assurance Partnership, asking their specialist risk management arm, is to do a series of work around developing some of the strategic risks in terms of the quality of narrative and how they present, and ensuring that there's clarity, and then also working with directorates around doing some more detailed workshops around operational risk and ensuring there's that link between operational into strategic to give us a better visibility, and then we'll progress from there around review of the strategy, etc. So I can bring back to this committee as part of the monitoring and update on how we progress through the year in terms of enhancing that as well.
Before I open it up, Ian, I just want to ask a question for me. So you refer to ordinance, audit and governance. So do they go into this in real detail? And the second part of my question is, we're looking backwards. When does the next report come out for Q1 so that we can compare progress going forward?
Thank you, Chair. I think those points both noted. So audit and governance do review as part of their wider remit, I suppose, around financial and wider governance matters. They obviously have the opportunity to go review in detail. Yesterday we did have some questions on it as we progress through. So I'm not sure quite where the interaction would be between the committee. I think you made the second point is a really important one here, and we will start to develop this reporting now to give actually a better visibility of the changing landscape of the risks, especially if we start creating that better environment of engagement around the risks. As I said, there were no movements. That's what I just described. So the change from Q3 to Q4 is none. Q1 will be going to, in terms of reporting, is about to go through its cycle with my colleagues in the corporate management team and do our assessment and discussion around those movements. And then I imagine it will, I'm not sure when the next scrutiny is, but I imagine it will be on the agenda for that. Yeah, we won't have made it to Q3, so it'll be the Q1 monitoring report there.
Any questions, members, for Ian? No? Okay, so the recommendation is to note. So we've noted, and we are bang on time for item number 12, which is our cyber risk and response briefings. Councillor Sudan will introduce the report, and Pete Honeywell, our transformation architecture manager, will also be, he's in attendance online. And this was to provide the Scrutiny Management Board with a briefing on the cyber threats by the council and how the council is responding to these threats. So, welcome, Councillor Dan. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a follow-up from when we came way back, probably 6 months ago, when we were talking about data and IT generally, and you wanted to follow up. And I think it seems quite pertinent as well to bring this to this committee now for assurance purposes. So you've had a descriptor paper. I just want to start my introduction just by saying that if at any point, it's going to be Peter who makes this decision, not me, mind you, we feel that you're going into questioning that may be either operational or technical, that may show how the council works, we may have to move into part 2, because I don't want to go into great detail about how the council puts its cyber security together in public. So if you do ask questions that we can't answer, I'm just flagging it up now that there may be reason to move into part 2. Cyber threats are becoming more and more well known to the public. I think even if you just look at the recent retail ones that we've had with Marks and Spencer's, the Co-op, I haven't seen the Panorama programme that was on Monday night yet, but I think most of the public are aware about how impactful it can be if you have an organisation that has a breakdown within its data security. And I think it's even more pertinent when you think of it in public service terms like the council, because so much of our work is now dependent on using IT as the way of working. And we have had cyber attacks. So I'm not denying that we haven't, and we have lots of phishing attacks all the time. And when I came here not that long ago and talked about the new Dell contract, we did say that cybersecurity was one of the biggest changes that we've looked at over the last 10 years in how we work and what we expected from Dell, if you remember when we bought the Dell renewal here. So if we did have a cyber attack, because so much of our work now is digitally enabled, it would have an impact on the council. We're doing a lot of work. Am I feedbacking from Pete? I don't know. We do a lot of our work, and of course we're also looking at new ways of working and bringing in AI as well, generative work. So obviously when we do that, we're making sure that we have the right protection, due diligence and everything and safeguarding that goes with it as it emerges. But we also have to think about how hackers get into our systems. So I do want to talk about what we're doing with staff and also with councillors, because quite often hackers can get in the system because of human error. We do a lot of updates and we expect all council staff and councillors to do all their updates on time, because if we don't, it means that, you know, if we're updating firewalls, we expect everybody who's got a device to do regular updates. I'm sure councillors, I checked mine, I did my final one last night when I came back off holiday, but every month there are a couple of short videos that come through to councillors called Know Before. And what they do is it describes to you as humans how we all have a responsibility as well to make sure that we do our due diligence. And if you haven't watched those bite-sized videos, I would really say that you should. And we are going to be chasing people up, because I did, as I said, I did my last one last night because I wanted to be able to sit here and say I've done all mine. But they are really useful, and they're useful not over in your work life, but also in your personal life as well, because it makes you aware of how easily people can actually get into your system. And once they're in your system, it's very difficult to get them out. So I think that's all I'm going to say. We are bringing in an extra level of security for staff, which is that if you don't regularly update your computer, after 30 days you will be locked out and you'll have to apply to get locked in again. And I personally think that we are just as responsible as any member of staff. And I think I would like to ask your advice as to how you think we can get across to all members of the council how important cybersecurity is, being aware and actually making sure that you do all your updates as well, because if you don't, you will equally get locked out, because I don't think we can treat councillors any different in terms of their responsibility in keeping us safe as we can for a member of staff. So that's my general introduction. You've had a paper, so I think if you're happy, unless Pete wants to add anything before I hand over, let's just go to questions.
Pete, do you want to say anything?
I'm aware that my microphone is squeaking, Chair, but apart from that, I've got no further introductory remarks. Happy to take questions.
Okay, I'm going to open it to questions. Councillor Ricketts first.
Thank you, Chair. I know, Helen, wasn't at the last item, and Peter's not here. Is that anything to do with the time of the meeting, Peter? Why you're not here today?
It's to do with caring responsibilities that I have at home, councillor. So that's the reason I'm not here.
Is that to do with the time of the meeting?
Partly. It's not exclusively to do with the time of the meeting.
I'm genuinely interested.
Yeah, I think we're not here to make points, councillor Ricketts. Pete approached me a few weeks ago and said that on this occasion, because he didn't realise the meeting had been moved, he asked if he could come online. So if we're going to ask every member of the committee and every officer, I think that's a little bit unfair.
Chair, the reason I ask it is it's a pertinent point because the meeting's just moved. I want to see the wider impact that it's having, not just on councillors, but all the support staff and any guests and visitors we may have. So I just wanted to pick up a flavour. I understand your point. Whatever time we decide to stick with moving forward will come out, but it was just because of the change of time for this meeting. I just want them to be the best possible meetings that they can be.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
Through you, Chair. I'm sorry, Councillor Ricketts, but we are live streamed at the moment and it is really unfair to put a member of staff in that position. It's an inappropriate question, through you, Chair.
I'm going to move us back onto the reason that we're talking about this. So I'm now going to open it up to questions on the paper that Councillor Dan and Pete have put before us, and whether we've got any questions on that. And I can see Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for everyone for joining, whatever shape or form that may take. Thank you. Really helpful report to see laid out. Obviously, with Plymouth's kind of future economic story so tied to our defence story, we are going to be playing a growing role, an ever-growing role as a key national defence asset. And Plymouth's role, its infrastructure, what the City Council does will become ever more important for the running of, our defence and our national CNI. Are we getting any additional support from, say, the National Cybersecurity Centre, from the MOD, to help do all the things you've said in terms of helping our staff do what they need to do, have the most robust systems, etc., etc.? Thank you.
I can't answer that one, so I'm going to pass that straight over to Peter.
We don't get specific additional support beyond that's been mentioned in the report, councillor, but I can point you in the report. It does talk about the fact that we have signed up to the security alerts that are provided out of the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, as well as the National Cybersecurity Centre. And so we, alongside anybody else that's signed up for that, will get those alerts they're broadcast. They're not specifically targeted for those places that might have defence industry associations, but that is the way that central government provides additional support to public sector organisations such as ourselves. So that's what we've signed up to. I think I'll stop there rather than to go any further. If you've got further questions, I'll try and answer them.
Thanks. Quick supplementary. This week there was quite a major breach of Microsoft's SharePoint systems. Kind of UK and US governments issued statements advising how public sector organisations had to respond. I'm just wondering, in instances like that, obviously they're very targeted on big Washington-based entities, national bodies. But could you just sort of talk us through, just to kind of bring to life, when something like that happens and there's a kind of big international event of, say, SharePoint, which is we are locked in and dependent on the Microsoft ecosystem. When a moment like that happens, can you sort of just bring to life a bit, how do we respond and adapt? Is that sort of business as usual, or how does your day change, Peter or Sue, when there are these kind of bigger moments? Thank you.
Shall I pick this up?
Yeah, because I normally get
So
a text or an email when we are alerted to an event.
So in the event of that example and others like it, Councillor, we get the notification through. In that case, it came from, I think, MHCLG, who were acting on advice from the National Cyber Security Centre. So we picked it up through that. It got forwarded and indeed picked up by DELT through their connections and their association on that distribution list as well. DELT being our IT operations partner. They have a team that respond immediately to threats like that and did a risk assessment of our exposure to that particular risk. They came back and reported to me what that exposure was. In the event that we needed to take action, in that case we didn't, but in the event that we need to take action, then that action is taken immediately, and we monitor that action through to a conclusion. You'll know those as zero-day vulnerabilities. That's what they're called, and actually the advice is to patch or to remediate those risks immediately, and that's what we do until we monitor that until those risks have been closed. We also have additional third-party monitoring on all of our infrastructure, looking at specific instances where vulnerabilities like that might be exposed. And in the past, one of the things we've done whilst we were notified and hadn't fully remediated, we've used that third-party monitoring service to make sure that no breach was detected or no suspicious activity was seen to be taking place whilst the vulnerability was still exposed.
Can I just ask a question about, you said when you were in your opening remarks, Councillor Dan, about councillors and staff, are you saying they're our biggest risk, or are you saying it's just something we need to monitor to make sure that we're educating our staff and our councillors to be more aware?
It's an awareness, but also we're also a risk. So we may have, we have been attacked by, Russian hackers in the past. But equally, we can have all those lovely firewalls out there, but if the users inside are not doing their due diligence, it makes it much easier for hackers to get into our systems. So this is why, on occasion, we get phishing emails sent to everybody, and you're meant to report it. If you report it, it shows that you're aware of the risk. If you open it, it shows that you're not aware of the risk and you need some more training. Because I know that, for instance, that when I was Lord Mayor, my Lord Mayor's account was attacked 3 times, and I sent emails to you all asking for money, which was lovely. I didn't want your money, but I didn't send those emails out. And it wasn't till councillors reported back to me, am I okay, that I realised, and then I report it straight into our system. So it's being aware all the time. And it's things like what you share as well. So just to, if you've done your know before stuff and your training, it will help you in your personal life as well as in your work life. So when you're paying invoices for big pieces of money, for instance, how you check that the invoice is a genuine invoice and not another invoice. If somebody who you think asks you to give some personal information over, do you really want to give that personal information over? How do you check that? And that is why the training is so important, because if we can cut down all the areas of risk, we reduce the council's risk. And it's also about sharing documents, for instance. So if you're sharing something which is officially sensitive on an open network and you send it to somebody by accident, what do? How do you pull it back? We're all human and we're all going to make mistakes at some point. But at least if you're aware of it, the minute you make that mistake, you'll recognise it straight away. I've sent it to the wrong Sue. We've all done it. And hopefully nobody's let anything out that they shouldn't. But it's just that awareness. So it's not that we are the biggest risk, but we all have a real responsibility to be diligent with council's data and equipment.
Okay, I just want to follow that up, because I passed one yesterday, by the way, and was told congratulations. But I, it's much easier to find fake emails and suspected emails on your laptop or on a computer than when you get it on your phone. And I really think some work needs to be done on our phone system that makes it much easier for us to be able to identify suspect emails and also how we report it, because yet I've not worked out how to report it on my phone. I can do it on my laptop. And also I'm going to ask this because I've downloaded a true caller thing on my phone. So I've just had a phone call as I'm sat here, which I looked at, from Toronto in Canada, but it says suspected spam on it. So is it not possible for us to have something like that as we go about our daily life within our council?
I'm going to leave you to answer that, Pete, because I actually agree. I don't think you can report a phishing email on your phone. So that's a really good point, because you could see it, couldn't you, and think, oh, I need to report it. But then when you get back to your desk, you forget to do it. Yeah. I'll pass that over to you, Pete.
Assuming we're talking about emails received on Outlook via our corporate phones or devices running Outlook, there is actually, you know, the phishing hook, the know before phishing hook is on the app on the phone as it is on the computer versions or the laptop versions. The other thing I would just say is the council's email defences include protection against incoming spam. I don't know whether this is quite what Chair was getting at, but just to reassure councillors, around half of all the emails received by the council are deflected and never delivered because they are suspected spam and they don't get through to the intended recipient. That's half every day of all the emails coming into the council that are barriered and protected from end users because they're either suspected spam or they are detected to be a threat. That is the volume of filtering that's going on automatically that helps weed out spam and threat emails.
Okay, I saw Councillor Allinson holding his phone up, so I'm sure he's going to...
I just want to say that the functionality does exist in the software, but when you click it on your phone, it rejects it and says the function is not possible. So the functionality is in the app, but they don't work properly.
So I think that I would like a recommendation from there to go forward that we kind of do some work on that, because if, as Councillor Dan says, that we are a risk as well, the equipment that we are provided should have the way of identifying that and reporting that with a function that works.
But you have to identify it though, Councillor Coker, and then report it, because the phone that's part of the awareness, is that we have to identify it. The phone's not going to do it for us.
I totally agree, but I picked mine up on my phone, but then had to come in on my laptop to report it. So that's where I'm saying I think we could do some work in tightening that up. Any other questions? Councillor Freeman, then Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. I'm not 100% sure if this is appropriate for the scrutiny, so please tell me if it needs to go elsewhere. Thank you. I know you will. With some councillors, roles that we have with like external bodies, for example, require us to use software that we can't have on the laptops because of security concerns. So like the Dropbox app, or we may experience difficulty using Zoom. Is that something that throughout all of this it can be addressed so that we are able to?
If councillors, so councillors in the past, when they haven't been able to do something like Zoom, for instance, we've worked with that. If you can't access something, I think you're just going to have to raise it on a one by one, because I don't know how safe a Dropbox is. Because if you have so for instance, my hub is in a choir and there's a choir Dropbox, but anybody can put information into that Dropbox. There's no checking of the information that goes into the Dropbox. So I don't know, unless Pete has got anything about that. But I think if you can't access information from an outside body and you're on the outside body for the council, then I think you need to raise it directly with us so that we can sort it out on merit.
Councillor Stevens.
This may be a part 2 requirement, so I see that this is the last item on the agenda. Rather than have a fuss of going back into part 1, do you want to take any definite part 1 questions, and then would that be helpful? That's fine.
Councillor Allenson, are you a part 1?
Yeah, just not to be a nerd or anything, but I would encourage whoever it is that's using Dropbox not to, because they terms and conditions Dropbox basically say that they, once you've used their service, they are the owner of anything you've transferred, so don't use it.
Thank you for that bit of advice. Any Councillor Poyser?
I think this is for part 1. I'm just looking at some of these case studies on here, and the impact that they've had, financial impact as well as the disruption to services. And we've got training, we can take precautions, can't we? I can't imagine what it's like if you're that person that lets in that cyber hacker. I mean, what support was available to these people? What are the consequences to those individuals? Because they could have been trained, but it could have been a complete accident. So I just want to try and understand that a bit more, like the sort of pressures we're putting on people.
I don't think we're putting pressure on people. I think we're trying to make people more aware of their own due diligence, because, as I said before, we are human and there will be mistakes.
Sorry, Kat, perhaps it wasn't pressure on people. Oh. It's the pressure it put on someone if there was a mistake and they were let in, there was an incident. I'm just trying to understand what support would be around that person.
It has happened. I'll let people answer.
Yeah, I think you raise a great point, actually, because in the last instance where an account was compromised and an attacker used that to spread other messages, we spent a lot of time supporting that individual and rebuilding their confidence. They had emails that went not just within the council but external to the council, so they'd got a lot of repairing to do of their reputation personally as well as the council's reputation. We took that work off them and helped them formulate a response that they were content with. We then sent that response out in support of them, and we spent time counselling them so that they understood that there was no blame attached to what had happened, that as has been said, these things could happen to any of us, and there, by the grace of God, go all of us, unfortunately, that we haven't fallen for such a similar incident. So we gave them support, we rebuilt their confidence, and we've tried to rebuild their reputation amongst the clients and partner agencies, as well as internal colleagues that had received the emails that came from the attacker, so that they were protected a little bit from that. I also then spent time with them, using them as a case study for all staff, and there is a training video that I did interviewing them to talk through their experience and the support they got after the attack, but mostly focused on actually what it felt like when they realised what had happened and what they then did to raise the alarm and how they were then supported through that process. So we've used them as a bit of a case study for other staff, to just because nothing is as realistic to people as a case study of one of your colleagues who's found victim of this, who goes through this, and then their story becomes very real for all the staff. And we were lucky in this case that the person in question was willing to record that video and be used as a case study for other people. And I think we got that. Earned that trust by the support that we gave them to recover from the damage that was done when their account was compromised. So I think it's a great question, and we've sort of built principles and protocols around how to support people in future, as have dealt actually on the back of that learning.
Thank you for that. Councillor Poyser.
just a very quick supplementary on that one, and that's really good to hear, because that puts faith back into people like yourselves, because if there is an issue, you think you've broken, you've let someone, and you can report it immediately, and you feel feel like you're being looked after by the organisation. You've got that kind of confidence that you're not going to be the person that's going to be in deep doo-doo.
Hey, thank you.
Just to add to that, I just think we have to make sure that's clear as well, because that's why I said we're all human and we will make mistakes. But it's really important to know what to do if you have made a mistake or you think you've been compromised, because that's the key thing, because it could happen to any of us.
Thank you, Councillor Dan. Before Councillor Ricketts, is this, I'm trying to do the part one first.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. Maybe I'm being a bit slow. Why is this on the agenda? Is there something that sparked this? I'm sorry if I've missed something. Just
As far as I'm aware, when I came ages ago, I can't remember. I was at Scrutiny quite a few times last year, Councillor Ricketts, but we were asked to come back and do a cyber security assurance paper to the board. That's why we're here, because somebody asked us.
It came up as a question and a request when we were talking about the renewal of contracts with Delt, and we talked about the role of the extra investment that we were putting in through Delt to our cyber defences. And so there was a question raised about, could we bring a paper that described the threats and the mechanisms we were using to defend ourselves at that time.
I mean, I do remember an exchange, I think that was from me, about governance arrangements with Delt, and there was some speculation going around at the time about partners and all the rest of it. I assume that's all gone away. This is obviously just a specific sort of operational thing on cyber security. I just wanted to get my head around why it was here today.
As far as I know, it was on the work programme, Councillor Ricketts, before I took over. So I said to Democratic support, we need to follow through what the previous chair had put on. I'm going to ask one final time if there's any more. No. So I'm going to ask Councillor Stevens to ask the question, and then I'm going to take a pause to see, before we answer it, whether we need to go into part two. So, Councillor Stevens, if you'd like to ask your question.
And I totally get them. Thanks for the consideration. It's a two-part question, so I'll leave it to officers once I've finished to advise. I was going to ask, and it partly links back to Charlotte's point about having, our military presence and the nature of the city that we govern. Do we have any idea about, and clearly I'm not looking for individual names or whatever, but do we have any idea about, if you like, the identity or demographics of people or organisations who have been threatening us? Is it from a national security perspective? Is it people sat in basements in Alabama with their cats without, what's the nature, if you like? And then secondly, how do we compare to similar local authorities in terms of perhaps unitary council size, in terms of number of instances, effectiveness of defence and reporting and so forth? So hopefully that comes across as the clear question, but in terms of whether we need to go into part two, I'll leave to our colleagues to advise.
My own opinion on that is you can have general answers without naming people, but I am going to go to both Councillor Dan and Pete, just in case we stray into areas we shouldn't go.
My personal opinion is we should move to part two, because we've put recent PCC experience within the sort of the wider paper that you've had without going into any specifics, but I'll leave Peter as the expert really to respond.
I would recommend, if you want me to answer that question properly and do justice to it, that we move to part two, please.
Okay, so that now becomes to me to consider passing a resolution under section 100A 4 of the Local Government Act of 1972 to exclude the press and public from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, as amended by the Freedom of Information Act 2000. So I propose that we move to part 2. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Stevens, and I am told we have to vote on that. So all in favour, please show. Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, Councillor. Right, so we are now in part 2 when we turn everything off. So if we just pause for a second. If I could bring everybody back to order. Okay, so I presume there's no more further questions. So the recommendation is on our paperwork to note the briefing and confirm whether there are other areas of cyber risk and the council's response that we wish to explore further. Now, I think what I would say, the only thing that came up today for me was the bit about, we talked about the inconsistency on the phone. I don't think that it warrants another come before us, but I do think it warrants an update, a written update as to what we're going to do and how we're going to get that working correctly. And then if that comes to Elliot, we can share that with members and then decide whether we're happy or not.
And Chair, do you think we can also take away the recommendation that councillors' training and support for regular updates should be the same as employees? I think that would be a very helpful recommendation, if that's all right.
Yeah, as long as everybody doesn't disagree. I'm not seeing any signs of disagreement. So if you could add that, Elliot, to the recommendations.
Get a show of hands.
All right, I've been told we need to vote on that, so all of those in favour? Right, so the 2 points were that they go back and look at the updates on how we do it on our phone, so it's consistent with our laptops. And the second is councillors just follow the same security protocol and training that staff have, that they're going to implement for staff. Yeah, so all those in favour, please show. All those against and abstentions. Have you got that?
Thank you, Chair.
And that, Pete, you can go. Thank you very much and enjoy your evening. Councillor Dan, you can go to your 80th birthday party. And before I close, excuse me, can we not have conversations amongst ourselves? I just think before I close this meeting, as Councillor Ricketts pointed out to me just now, today is Councillor Murphy's birthday, so she's not 80, but I think it would be, thank you, Pauline, and we hope you've enjoyed your birthday with us as your party. So with that, I'm going to close the meeting and thank everybody for their attendance.